Today's message is about the supernatural versus the natural. Someone in here today thinks that they're in a situation that is totally impossible to correct. You have been looking at the dynamics of the natural and have refused to accept the possibilities of the supernatural. Your situation, your circumstances have led you to conclude to the fact that you have lost your battle. So therefore you've actually have said to yourself, I give up. But I dare you to entertain today's message. I dare you to entertain just the title of today's message. God specializes in the impossible. Wait, did I just hear you, Pastor? Did I just hear you correctly? Yes, I said God specializes in the impossible. But wait a minute, did Pastor just hear your heart? Did you just say, I tried faith and it didn't work? Well, the reality is faith tried you and you didn't work.
All right.
When we examine these two stories, I'm going to ask you to examine yourself. And I want you to find your own weaknesses. I want you to admit to yourself your own weaknesses, so we can find out what it could be that could be blocking your prayer line. Weaknesses can block your prayer line. Sometimes they come in many forms. Of course, we all have weaknesses. We all have things about us that are crippling to our ability. We all have weaknesses. But sometimes they come in many other forms. I dare you to entertain that your weakness could be the wrong people. I dare you to think about the fact that you may have too much pride. I really wish you would even think about the fact that you've been questioning yourself, that if in 2010 that Christ is still performing miracles. And hopefully by the end of this message, you'll know that God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore.
Yes.
When I preach this message, you're going to want to know some things. You're going to want to know, how do we operate in the supernatural? Well, first of all, we need to understand some critical points. Some very critical points that will keep us out of the supernatural realm, but keep us operating only in the natural realm. And I want to tell you right now that God does nothing in the natural. Being content. That's a critical point. Being content does not mean you need to stop reaching for higher heights. When the Bible speaks of being content with what you have, that does not mean that that's all you're going to get. It means that you're happy when you have a little, and you're happy when you have a lot. That your happiness is not dependent upon the things that are placed around you.
That's right, Pastor.
We need to understand another critical point, that when God says stand still, that doesn't mean stop working. It doesn't mean you sit there literally in one place. What it means is stand still knowing that He is God. That you don't have to be running from pillar to post and a frenzy and your mind is all out of control. Your mind is still on God and what He can do. And finally, we need to understand rest. Rest does not mean you lay in the bed and sleep all day. A lot of us think that when God says rest, that means you need to be laying in bed sleeping. God does not mean that. He means rest in knowing that He has everything under control. That means that you're not anxious about anything. That means that you're not overexcited about what's going to happen. And you're trying to predict tomorrow. And He said you don't even need to be thinking about tomorrow because you're not even promised to be here.
That's right.
So you need to rest in today. No matter what the enemy sends your way, you need to rest in the joy of the Lord.
Amen.
And I think I need to tell you too that we need to understand that God does not do anything that you're able to do yourself. A lot of people think that God should be doing things that they're able to do.
Yeah.
God only does the impossible.
Yes. Yes. That.
Keep that in mind. He only does what you can't do.
All right. All right.
And again, I'll use for a subject. God specializes in the impossible. Say that to yourself. God specializes in the impossible. In these verses of Scripture, we can see two women who were under some very difficult circumstances. Circumstances that are similar to many of us today. I don't know about you, but as I examine the world, I see that jobs are being lost and food prices are seemingly on the rise and gas is sky high. And as I told y'all on last Sunday, every time I look in my pocketbook, my money seems to have become funny and my change is looking very strange. Yes, we are living in some difficult times. But again, in these passages of Scripture, we find two different women from two different backgrounds who are under some different circumstances. If I may take a moment to bring you up to speed on what's happening in this situation, we can take a closer look at the two women depicted in this story. And not only are we going to look at these two women, we're going to look at the impact of some things that were going on in their lives that made a difference in their situation and in their circumstances. In other words, we're going to talk about these women. Oh, don't act like y'all ain't never talked about anybody.
Okay.
As we examine these passages of Scripture, maybe somebody in here can find out how one woman got her blessing and some overflow, and how the other woman almost missed her blessing. If I could just get one witness in this place, somebody that in here is going to have the mindset of one woman, and somebody in here is going to have the mindset of the other. But I hope by the end of this message that you will be able to lay aside any weight that's holding you back, anything that's separating you from God.
All right. All right.
Now let's get back to talking about these women. I've already told you that these two women had some differences. They were from different backgrounds and under some different circumstances. But as I read the passages of Scripture, I found out that as different as they were, they had one thing in common. They both knew the same man of God. See, we may have different backgrounds and some different circumstances, but we both know Jesus. Can I get a witness in this place?
Yeah.
If you're under the sound of my voice right now, I came to tell you today, right now, that God specializes in impossible situations. If we had to look at the situations, they seemed like they were at the point of no return. We could clearly see the situations of these two women in this passage. These two women were in some very difficult situations, under some difficult circumstances. Yet, they both had encountered the man of God.
Yes.
This first woman, she meets the man of God, and she begins to share her dire situation.
Yes.
She tells the man of God that her husband has died and that the creditors are wanting to take her boys as slaves to repay the debt. Now, you may not be able to relate to that, but you might be able to relate to the fact that the creditors are wanting to take your car.
All right. Come on.
To repay the debt.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, the house that you paid off some years ago, but now you've taken out a second mortgage. Come on, somebody.
Yes.
You may be able to relate to this woman.
All right.
I don't know how much clearer the Bible can make it, but this woman was in some deep debt, and she was out of money. In other words, you know my slogan. She was broke, frustrated, busted, and almost disgusted.
All right.
And fearful of what her creditor was threatening to do.
Yeah.
How many of y'all are afraid to answer the phone because you know the creditor is on the other end and what he's getting ready to say, and it got you all in a state of panic. You don't even want to answer your own phone.
Say it, Pastor.
But watch this.
Yeah.
I wish somebody that you got to put yourself in the place of this woman.
Yeah.
You got to comprehend what is going on, what she's going through, what she must be feeling as she is pouring out her heart to the man of God. This woman is in a difficult situation that requires a financial move from God.
Yes. Yes.
Can anybody understand? Can you emphasize, sympathize, agonize? Can you even rationalize the difficult situation that this woman is facing?
Yes.
But she knew enough about God or enough about his track record to have the courage to share what she was going through.
That's right.
In other words, she laid down